So, this is part two to the video I was making earlier. So, the gentleman came up to the counter and said, "I need you to call 911." And I said, "Okay." Well, and he said, I'm having symptoms of hypothermia." And I said, "Okay." And I looked at my boss because I'm ready to clock out. You know, I'm not supposed to be online anymore. And I looked at my boss and I said, "He needs you to call 911." And she goes, "What? Why?" And I said, "He's telling me that he's having symptoms of hyperthermia." And she goes, "Call them." I'm like, "Okay." So I got on the phone, called 911, explained to them what was happening to the gentleman. And I was asking him questions because they were asking me questions. And I found out that he was a stroke survivor. And that hit home because my grandmother passed away from strokes. And I was looking at the gentleman and I stopped seeing him as a customer, but I started seeing him as someone who needed help. I took it personally now. And I started describing to the gentleman on the other line what I was seeing. I said, I can tell that one of his hands is enlarged. He's got some cuts that don't look like they've healed properly. Or swollen. I said swollen. He has one arm that it's swollen. It's his left arm. So the symptoms I was giving him, he already knew that it was a stroke. And as I was describing what I was seeing to the 911 operator, or actually the firefighter dispatcher, the gentleman spoke up and said, "I'm a stroke survivor." And that's, I relayed that information. And he asked me, he goes, "Does he have slurred speech?" And I said, "He didn't when he first came in, but the more time has passed, his speech is starting to get slurred." I do pay attention to these things because they're important. We had a gentleman who fell, and I made a detailed report for the company, because if he came back and decided that he needed us to cover his injuries, they were going to need to know exactly which injuries were caused by the fall. So I always make sure that I pay attention to these types of details so that I can provide the correct information. And the gentleman on the other side said, "Okay, the ambulance is on their way. Just have him stay there." "Is he inside the store?" I said, "Yes, he is." He said, "Okay." And he asked me how his temperature was. And I was like, "I don't have a thermometer." And I was like, "You know what? I got my hand." So I touched him, and his hand in comparison to mine, wow, it felt like he had been in a freezer, in a meat locker for an hour, because that's the first thing that I have, I have had family who has had heart issues, and, you know, has had strokes. And that is one of the first things that happens is your heart starts to pull the blood away from your extremities, from your feet, your hands. So that's why you start to get hypothermia, is because your heart is struggling to beat. And it's either being constricted and the blood isn't flowing like it should. So when the paramedics arrived, I didn't stay because, my shift was now over. So I signed off. I told my boss, the paramedics are going to be here in a few minutes. The gentleman asked to sit down. I asked her if I could get him a chair. She gave me a step ladder. I'm like, "That's fine." I sat him down. I said, "Don't move from here. Paramedics are on their way. They're going to be here in a couple minutes. If you feel anything, please make sure and let the, the manager know. And I turned around to my boss and I gave her instructions. I said, look, they told me that if he starts to feel faint or he faints, to lay him down on his side. If he starts to throw up, to lay him down on his side. And because if that way he won't choke on it. And she said, okay. So I left, got in my car, and I drove home, and I drove to where I sleep. And I always say home because no one else will understand if I tell them I live in my car. Plus the stigma of being homeless. People don't look at you very well. And God has allowed me not to be transparent in my life. He's, guided me. I don't do anything without his guidance. And so I found out yesterday morning when I asked my boss, what happened to the gentleman? And she said, oh, they took him in. So chances are there was something wrong. And I said, the other employee, she mentioned to me that he was probably faking it. And that I should have just told him to leave and not stop bothering us. And I looked at her and I said, I'd rather be wrong and send him help than to be right, send him on his way, and something happens to him. Because now it's on me. And it reminds me of a passage that when God calls you to be a watchman, he tells you, I want you to speak my words, because if you don't, their blood will be on your hands. While I may not be a prophetic watchman, I am a watchman. He sends me out to the people that need me to help them. Not for myself, not for my glory, but as his vessel. And now I've elevated. So now I don't have to go look for them. They come looking for me. And when they need help, they come see me. God guides them to me. And then he gives me what they need, and I fulfill. I am obedient to God's word. I fulfill his word. So back to this man that I met 2 months ago. He knew that I worked at night and slept during the day because I had mentioned it before in conversation. We've only spoken the one time. And he did it once before where he blared his music. He had it so loud, it woke me up. And it was only like 9:30 in the morning. And I had gotten off work at 5:30. By the time I drove to where I was sleeping, because I choose safe places where I know I will be okay to sleep. And public places. But they're safe enough because God protects me. And I didn't open my eyes. I knew it was early. And I just said, Father, please send him away. It's not right that I have to be woken up this early with blaring music. It is not nice. And I said, if it is in your will that he should leave, I ask, Father, that you have him move. Not 2 seconds later, he drove away. I was like, thank you, Father. Thank you for my peaceful sleep. Today, or this morning, or this afternoon. It was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He showed up and he was blaring his music. But I was already awake. But I knew as long as that music was playing, I wasn't going to go back to sleep. And I said, I understand, God. You want me to get up. I got it. It's my day off. You don't want me sleeping all day. You have things for me to do. Normally I would have driven closer to the restroom, but with it being a sunny day, a beautiful day, I chose to stay in my spot and walk over to the restroom and take my puppy with me. And I took him. And for those that watched the video about my puppy and his sickness, he got better and then he had a rebound. And your prayers would be most welcome because he needs them. Satan is coming against him very hard since he can't come against me because I'm protected. His entire hair has fallen off. And I feel like I've been selfish by bringing him along on this path. But if I had left him where he was at, he'd have been killed. Or worse, turned evil. But God wanted him on this path with me. That's why he allowed him to stay with me. Anyway. So, I'm sitting there. I got back to the car. I was wearing a tank top and I was wearing a sweater over it. So I took off the sweater because it was warm and I just left the tank top on. And I was a little sweaty, so I started wiping myself down with some wipes that Father told me to buy. And because he's like, put something on the window so that you have some privacy. I'm like, okay. Because I had taken it down when I went to go to the bathroom. So I put the cover back on the window and as you could see, when I want privacy, I just put it back up. And this man raised his voice across the parking lot. Are you in there? I'm saying it like he said it. I didn't respond. God said don't respond. And I could hear him. I can hear his steps coming. And I said, Father, let it be you that comes through and not me. Let it be your words and not mine. And so I pulled down the shade, the cover. Obviously, he has no understanding of personal space and wanting privacy. I put up the screen for a reason. Didn't bother him. So he knocks on my door, on the mirror, the side mirror. He says, are you in there? And I took down the shade and I said, yes, I'm here. He's like, oh. And he says, do you celebrate Easter Sunday? I said, no, I don't celebrate Easter. I celebrate Resurrection Weekend, Resurrection Day. Tomorrow is Resurrection Day. And he goes, yeah, that's the same thing. I said, no, it's not. Easter has a bunny and eggs. Resurrection is about God and our Savior, Christ. Has nothing to do with a bunny and an egg. And he's like, whatever. And I'm like, internally, I'm like, God, I'm not sure what's going on here, but let it be you and not me. So he proceeds to tell me that, he wants to invite me to this church and they're having Easter Sunday. And I said, I don't celebrate Easter. And I said, plus I have to work tomorrow, unfortunately. I have a couple coworkers who are celebrating Easter, and since I don't celebrate Easter, they asked me to work. I said yes. I'd rather be out celebrating God and the fact that he's risen, but, I'll celebrate him at work. I'll share my words with people at work. And he ignored it. And then he started to tell me about his life and the fact that, he's done giving God any more time. And I was like, oh. Told me that, he's given God 2 years of his life to bring back his family. He's done everything he could. He's done, he's tried to bring them back, and they're not listening. He's being told that by the police that he can't show up there. They won't let him talk to his mother. And God was talking to me at the same time, and he goes, do you see it? Yes. In my head, I was like, Father, why is he talking to me? Why is he giving me all of this? What is it that you want from me? But after that, he stayed quiet. He didn't say anything anymore. I'm like, okay. I'm like, So this man kept ranting and raving about his family, and he, said, if you want to come to the church, and da, da, da. And I said, well, I've actually been going back to Arizona every week, every weekend. It's half true. I said, and I still haven't connected with my children, but God led me to tell him that. And I realized in that second that me speaking about my children as if they're with me now is a step of faith, is a leap of faith, because I know they're not. But if you speak a thing, so I don't know where these words came from, but I looked at him and I said, it sounds to me like you've given God an ultimatum. Either he brings back your family or you're going to walk away. And he goes, of course. Of course I've given him an ultimatum. I've given him 2 years of my life. I've done this, I've done that. I said, but it's not about you. I said, you can't change the hearts of your kids. You can't change the hearts of your wives, because he's had more than one. That only God can do that. So then he started to manipulate the conversation and say, well, that's not what I said. And I said, okay. And he's like, I'm doing what God told me to do. I've done so much. I've given of myself so much. And I looked at him and I said, but you keep saying I. There's no I in God. There's God. That's it. And I could tell he was getting flustered and he was getting impatient and angry with me. And he went on and said, and trying to turn the conversation in his favor. He looks at me and he goes, "So you're a Republican or a Democrat?" And I said, "I believe in God. And whoever God chooses, whoever God tells me is the one that I should vote for, that's who I vote for." And he goes, "So did he tell you to vote for this one or this one?" And I said, "That's not your business. That's between me and God." "Oh, of course, you know, you don't have to tell me. I'm nobody. I'm nothing." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "You know, but you have to pick someone. I mean, what do you think of the person that's in the office now? Is he a good person or a bad person?" And I said, "And that's not for me to judge." And he goes, "Oh, no, you're not judging. You're just saying whether you think he's a good or bad person." And I said, "That is judgment. Saying whether or not I think he is a good person or not is judging that person. And I am not God. I am not able to judge someone based on their behavior, based on their attitude, based on their things that they're doing, because I don't know their heart." And then he says this to me: "Oh, you're just being a brat now." And I said, "No, I'm not." And he goes, "Yes, you are. You're being a brat." And I said, "No, I'm not. And I don't appreciate being called names. I've been called names all my life, and I don't appreciate being called a brat." And he goes, "Oh, it's nothing bad. It's just a word. It means." I said, "I don't care what it means. I don't like it. So don't call me that." And he goes, "It's like the F word." And he actually said the word because, you know, being a man of God, supposedly, he was dropping F-bombs left and right. And he goes, "Who decided that F word is a bad word? Who was it that decided that it was not a good word to use?" And I said, "I don't know." And then he exposed himself, saying that he used to be an alcoholic, a cocaine addict, but cocaine is not addictive, not to the body. And I was looking at him like, okay. And then he went for my sunglasses because I was wearing sunglasses. And he says, "Do you know why I'm squinting?" I said, "No." He says, "Because I've had 3 eye surgeries, 3 different eye replacements. I have had to have 3 eye replacements because my body will not accept the eyes that I receive." And he goes, "And you don't think I don't see what they've seen? You don't think I've seen the spirit, the when I go to sleep, I see what they've seen. I feel what they've felt." And I just, okay. And then he says, "I feel like just giving up, like just walking away and, going back to the things that getting a house and getting this and getting that." And I said to him, "It sounds to me like the enemy is trying to get you to walk away from God." "What? Why would you say that? Why would you say that the enemy is trying to get me to walk away?" He goes, "I'm not walking away." I said, "Well, from what you just said, that you feel like giving up, that's not God." I said, "Because it's not according to our time. It's not according to the ways of our ways. It's according to God's way, God's will." And back to the eyes. And he says, you know what white people wear dark glasses? Because I wear dark sunglasses. I'll show you what I was wearing so you can see. They mirror him. And that's what I was wearing. And then he says to me, do you know why we people wear glasses, sunglasses, dark sunglasses? I said, no. Oh, well, to hide that their eyes are closing. I'm like, huh? Yeah. He goes, if you think about it, you know, when you're standing in the sun, your eyes squint and then your eyes start to close because you can't keep them open. So people wear sunglasses so people can't see that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I didn't know that. But I didn't take off my sunglasses. So at this point, he's getting irritated and louder. And while he's not violent, I could sense the violence coming. So I began to pray in my head. Father, please, if it is your will, please have this man walk away. Please have this man leave right now. If my safety is in danger, I ask you, Father, to have him retreat. I wasn't even done with my prayer, and the man was already saying goodbye. He's like, all right, well, I got to go. I'm like, okay. And as he was walking away and he's getting in his car and he goes, you know what? I think you and that other guy, because there's another gentleman that is a regular at the place where I park. And yes, it's a park. So it's very public. There's always people there. People walking their dogs. Kids walking to school. 'Cause they cut through the park to get to the school. And there's people the workers that work at the park are there. So it's a safe place for me to park. They're getting used to my car, so they know me. I say hi to them. They say hi back. They don't know my story. They don't ask questions. And I don't give voluntarily anyway. So he says, I think you guys are here to watch me, to keep tabs on me. And I was like, you have no idea why I'm here. You are so far from the truth. It's scary. And then God says, you know, don't leave right away. Just stay put. You know, get ready. Get everything put away. I'm like, okay, take your time. Okay. So the man takes off. And then the revelations start happening. And God says to me, what has been happening in the last week? I said, I have been seeing people that remind me of people I know. You've been showing me the spirit behind the individual. But the familiarity of that spirit. And I was like, familiar spirits. That's what you've been trying to tell me. That familiar spirits were going to try to come back into my life. Now, this man reminded me of my narcissistic husband, who was always controlling and manipulating the conversation to fit his narrative. But the one thing this man didn't do, which my husband used to be able to do, and this was God's way of showing me that these things no longer have a hold on me. These things no longer are in my life to keep me down. I have been delivered and I have been freed. And the place across from where I go to sleep in peace, it's called Liberty. And in the last week, the sign that's in front of that place across from that place, has been saying, announcing, announcing, announcing. And I'm like, what are you announcing, God? And the next word that comes up, congratulations. I'm like, what? I'm like, nothing's changed. Everything's still the same. I'm still living in my car. I'm still working at this place. And I'm still not making ends meet. I'm like, the abundance is in here. And I said, and he goes, you don't feel it? And it wasn't until after this man left that I did feel it. The freedom that these things no longer have a hold on me. That I will be able to stand in front of my ex-husband, who is going to want to come back to me, who is going to want to continue the toxic and disgusting relationship that we had. And I am going to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, no, thank you. Without anger, without hatred, without disgust, with nothing but love. Nothing but love. God's love. And he is going to be so, like, what happened? Like, you're supposed to, like, give me what I need, my fix, because a narcissist, if none of you have ever looked up what a narcissist is, and I didn't know what a narcissist is, God actually brought it to my attention by accident. Well, I was looking for something else, and he ended up bringing that to my attention. And I started reading what it was, and I was like, wow. And then I found the narcissistic mother. And I was like, wow. And I was like, but I thought you said she wasn't my mother. And he's like, well, she's not, but she's playing the part. And this is this. I was like, oh. So I'm still working on my memoir. I'm 77 pages in. And there has been a lot of revelation in these 46 days of Lent. Giving up meat has changed me completely. I have one more bit of testimony. I guess that's what this has been, is my testimony. I had, throughout these 46 days, I had been doing intermittent full food fasts.